what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous flood o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets rang the land above bursting air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
We set sail on this new sea because there is new knowledge to be gained and new rights to be won, and they must be won and used for the progress of all people.
Good morning. Welcome to Rice. I'm David Alexander, the Director of the Space Institute here at Rice University. I'm so very honoured to be here sharing, thank you. I'm so very honoured to be here sharing this moment together with all of you. Today we remember the iconic speech that President John F. Kennedy gave here at Rice Stadium exactly 60 years ago. A speech that inspired a nation with the audacious vision to land a human on the moon for the first time. The legacy of those words live on to this day. They inspire and challenge a new generation of explorers, they're all sitting over there, and to take up the mantle to return to the moon. And from there, cast our vision deeper into space and turn our dreams of humanity's destiny among the stars into reality. Thank you for sharing this celebration with us. Now we have many special guests with us this morning, and we thank you all for being here. I would like to especially acknowledge those of you who, in the audience, who attended that speech all those years ago. Please stand and be acknowledged wherever you are in the stadium. I would like to also give a shout out to all of the students who are here from the Houston Independent School District. Let me hear you. This is really what it's all about. And to the college students from Rice and our sister universities around the city. Most of you will be alive 40 years from now when we will be celebrating the 100th anniversary, and who knows, perhaps we will even have a live feed from the women and men living and working on the moon. With his enduring words, President Kennedy inspired a generation of astronauts, scientists, engineers, and explorers to make the impossible possible. Join me in learning more about the impact of this speech and take a moment to hear from the director of the John F. Kennedy Library, Alan Price, and NASA Deputy Administrator, Pam Melroy. Thank you.
Pam Melroy, welcome to the John F. Kennedy Presidential Library and Museum. It's great to have you here from NASA.
Thank you, Alan. It's really an honor to meet you, and it's an honor and a thrill to be here. It's an absolutely beautiful museum.
So let's talk about space and President Kennedy.
The speech at Rice University, although it followed a message that he had sent to Congress, in so many ways captured the moment in a very specific way. His direction about sending a man to the moon, and he talked about doing other things as well, returning him safely by the end of the decade. It's iconic.
His speech, I think, is remarkable, and I'm so glad that it continues to resonate and inspire today. I think that some people don't fully appreciate the ambiguity of the science at that time and how bold that statement was. And yet, this bold statement of we're going to do it and bring them back safely, an extraordinary statement.
I think it was a statement of belief in the capability of America,
yes,
that we could solve those problems. And I think that has really stuck with me. One of the things that I see about NASA is once we have decided what it is, the thing that we want to do, everyone just goes and does it. And I think that speech kind of... Hey, we on this, what's up, you said? We can do it, and then we're going to prove to you that we can. And I think that lingers today.
We can pick up on another aspect, I think, of President Kennedy's vision for space exploration. Though clearly one of the motivators at the time was Cold War and concern that Sputnik had gone ahead of us and who's going to grab the high ground. But he had a vision that space would be an area for international cooperation and collaboration.
It is a beacon for peaceful cooperation, and we're seeing that on the International Space Station with our partners from all around the world. It is a place that we can continue to always have conversations with each other and work together towards a common goal, even when things are really tense here on Earth.
So, who gets to go to space?
Of both knowledge and ignorance. The greater our knowledge increases, the greater our ignorance unfolds. No man can fully grasp how far and how fast we have come. But condense, if you will, the 50,000 years of man's recorded history in a time span of but a half a century. Stated in these terms, we know very little about the first 40 years, except at the end of them, advanced man had learned to use the skins of animals to cover them. Then about 10 years ago, under this standard, man emerged from his caves to construct other kinds of shelter. Only 5 years ago, man learned to write and use a cart with wheels. Christianity began less than 2 years ago. The printing press came this year. And then less than 2 months ago, during this whole 50-year span of human history, the steam engine provided a new source of power. Newton explored the meaning of gravity. Last month, electric lights and telephones and automobiles and airplanes became available. Only last week did we develop penicillin and television and nuclear power. And now, if America's new spacecraft succeeds in reaching Venus, we will have literally reached the stars before midnight tonight. This is a breathtaking pace, and such a pace cannot help but create new ills as it dispels old. New ignorance, new problems, new dangers. Surely the opening vistas of space promise high costs and hardships, as well as high reward. So it is not surprising that some would have us stay where we are a little longer, to rest, to wait. If this capsule history of our progress teaches us anything, it is that man in his quest for knowledge and progress is determined and cannot be deterred. Those who came before us made certain that this country rode the first waves of the Industrial Revolution, the first waves of modern invention, and the first wave of nuclear power. And this generation does not intend to founder in the backwash of the coming age of space. But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why 35 years ago fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Because that goal will serve to measure to the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we are willing to accept.
One we are unwilling to postpone, and one which we intend to win.
I'd like to start today's live programming by welcoming to the stage Professor Reggie DesRoche, the 8th President of Rice University. Reggie.
Thank you, David. I still get chills when I see that video. Before I begin, I want to thank all of you for being here. And we know it's hot and humid, but we will all be very brief with our remarks. In the audience, we have astronauts, elected officials, Rice Board of Trustees, Rice faculty, staff, students, and alumni, and leadership from NASA and the Johnson Space Center. I want to extend a special welcome to the thousands of students here from the Houston Independent School District. Thank you for being here. And again, I want to acknowledge all of the Rice alumni here today who were in Rice Stadium 60 years ago. It's amazing that so many of you could join us. We gather here in Rice Stadium to celebrate a challenge and to renew a commitment. Let us remember that throughout almost all of human history, people looked into the night sky and beheld the moon as a distant wonder, something eternally out of reach. Flying to the moon was a metaphor for the impossible. But here in this stadium, 60 years ago, President John F. Kennedy boldly proclaimed that his generation would choose to make what seemed impossible a reality. One of Rice's alumni, Bill Broyles, who sat in the stadium on that day, would later put it succinctly when he wrote the screenplay for the movie Apollo 13. It's not a miracle, we just decided to go. With 7 words, we choose to go to the moon, President Kennedy changed the course of human history and cemented Rice University's place in the lore of America's space program. Kennedy had established the goal of landing astronauts on the moon more than a year earlier in a joint session of Congress. But it was the challenge he issued here at Rice that put the space race into overdrive. Within months of Kennedy's speech, Rice provided NASA the land for the Johnson Space Center and became one of America's first universities to establish a Department of Space Science. Within 18 months, satellites built at Rice were being launched into orbit atop American rockets. By the time Apollo 11 landed, several dozen graduate students and countless undergraduates had helped build instruments that made historic breakthroughs and remain on the surface of the moon today. Over the following 6 decades, the ties that formed between NASA and Rice in the early 1960s have continued to grow and support our nation's exploration goals and advancement of human and robotic spaceflight. Rice researchers played a key role in building the Hubble Space Telescope, and Rice faculty were co-investigators on numerous robotic explorations of the suns and planets. And they have a supporting role in NASA's current mission to the moon, Artemis. Rice's proud heritage of collaborating with NASA since the space agency's founding is evident all over our beautiful campus. Outside this very stadium, there is a moon tree donated to Rice by Rosemary Russa, who's in the stadium with us today. She's the daughter of Apollo 14 astronaut Stuart Russa. Rice is privileged to be a partner in pursuits related to space exploration and to be part of an historic collaboration with NASA that supports some of the world's most important research and educational outreach. Simply put, we are partners in the pursuit of knowledge. Such knowledge, in the words of John F. Kennedy, must be won and used for the progress of all people. Now a new generation chooses to go to the moon, and once again, Rice proudly takes wing with NASA and a nation destined for the stars. And now, I invite Johnson Space Center Director, Vanessa Wyche, to the podium. Thank you.
Guests, elected officials, and the greater Houston community. I'd like to especially welcome the hundreds of students from the Houston Independent School District.
That'll be a nice field trip.
I'd also like to recognize the employees from NASA's Johnson Space Center and from all across the agency. And a special welcome to the NASA Alumni League, our retired NASA workforce. Many were a part of the history that we're celebrating today. I'm Vanessa Wyche, Director of NASA's Johnson Space Center, and I'm honored to be here with all of you to commemorate President Kennedy's historic speech and the important role Houston has played in shaping our nation's space program. This year is very special at Johnson Space Center. We're celebrating 60 years in Houston. From landing man on the moon to sustaining a presence in low Earth orbit via the space shuttle and assembling the International Space Station, Johnson has been the iconic beginning of some of humankind's greatest achievements. When you dream big, you can achieve what seemed impossible. NASA proved this when it met President Kennedy's challenge to put Americans on the moon within a decade in the 1960s. The Apollo program captured the world's attention and demonstrated the power of America's vision and technology to ignite generations of great achievements, exploration, and scientific discovery. At Johnson, I'm privileged to lead more than 11,000 employees who work each day to dare, unite, and explore, and lead the world in human space exploration. As the home to America's Astronaut Corps, International Space Station, Orion, and Gateway programs, and a host of future space developments, our team plays a pivotal role in enhancing scientific and technological knowledge to benefit all of humankind. NASA's journeys have proved technological breakthroughs push the frontiers of scientific research and expand our understanding of the universe. These accomplishments and those to come share a common genesis: education in science, technology, engineering, and math. And for me, that involves increasing academic partnerships in NASA projects, enhancing high school education, supporting underrepresented communities, strengthening online education, and boosting NASA's contribution to informal education. The intended outcome is a generation prepared to code, calculate, design, and discover its way to a new era of American innovation. We seek to create opportunities for a diverse set of students to contribute to NASA's work in exploration and discover. Recently, I signed Space Act agreements with all of the universities in our local area, including Rice University, to enhance our academic partnerships. With our Artemis Moon to Mars exploration program, NASA will put the first woman and the first person of color on the lunar surface and build a sustainable presence there. And in lunar orbit. Then we will use what we learn to take the next giant leap, sending astronauts to Mars. Our goal at Johnson Space Center for the next 60 years is to make Texas a global hub of human exploration, such that any country or entity that desires to work in low Earth orbit, around the moon, on the surface, further in the cosmos, can begin their next giant leap right here in Space City. As you listen to the guest speakers today, I challenge everyone to get involved and help us grow the next generation of explorers. Our sons and daughters, nieces and nephews, and neighbors. Together, we will inspire the next generation, the Artemis generation. For the students in the audience, I hope you'll join us as an intern one day. And to the public, if you haven't been to the Clear Lake area lately, I invite you to join us to learn more about human space exploration. Giant leaps start here. We have a very special guest joining us this morning. Administrator Bill Nelson has served in public office for over 4 decades. First in the state legislature and U.S. Congress, then as a state treasurer. He was elected 3 times to the United States Senate, representing Florida for 18 years. In 1986, Administrator Nelson flew on the 24th flight of the space shuttle. The mission on Columbia orbited the Earth 98 times over 6 days. Administrator Nelson conducted 12 medical experiments, including the first American stress test in space and a cancer research experiment sponsored by university researchers. Please join me in giving a big Texas welcome to NASA Administrator Bill Nelson.
Consolation to you students, it was as hot 60 years ago in this stadium with the president as it is today. Director Wyche and members of the NASA family, President DesRoche and the Rice community, Chairwoman Eddie Bernice Johnson, my friend Representative Brian Babin, my very good friend Sheila Jackson Lee, my old friend Al Green, my new friends Sylvia Garcia and Lizzie Fletcher, and Mr. Mayor Turner, and of course the educators and students from the Houston Independent School District. So thank all of you for being here. I'm going to be merciful to you because I'm going to be short. Throughout America's story, there are defining days. Days when minds change, hearts fill, and imaginations soar. Days when visions transform the trajectory of the American story, which is our story. And one of those days happened 60 years ago. It happened in this same city, at this same stadium, in the same sweltering heat of a sunny September day. And on that day, 60 years ago, 7 famous words that you've heard repeated carried across this stadium and across the country. We choose to go to the moon. President Kennedy knew that vision would be hard, not easy. He made that clear. He said what he said: we choose to go to the moon in this decade and do other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. He understood we still had to make major scientific and societal advances, but he also sensed something else: our country's can-do spirit. It's a spirit that drives us to make the impossible possible. And 60 years ago, we came together to do just that. The space program propelled to the forefront of culture and consciousness. It galvanized a historic effort that we are now the stewards of. We must never stop daring to take the next moonshot. And moonshots don't just happen in the cosmos, but also here on Earth. So it is today at the John F. Kennedy Library that President Joe Biden is taking the cancer moonshot to new heights. We can end cancer as we know it. And today in Space City, a new generation, the Artemis generation, stands ready to return humanity to the moon and then to take us further than ever before to Mars. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be hard. Some things never change, but even after 60 years, they don't change. Some nations on our planet do not engage in our mission of goodwill, but we go in peace, as President Kennedy said. And today we have invited other peoples of the earth to join us in this great international adventure. Doing what is hard and achieving what is great, that is what stirs humankind. That's what unites us. With inspiration and innovation, no Herculean effort is too large. No moonshot is beyond our reach. You've seen already the James Webb Space Telescope. It's giving humanity a new view of our universe, and we have never, ever seen that before. And from the new forming of stars to devouring black holes, this telescope is revealing all this and more. And now the Artemis generation is about to leave quite a mark. This generation, all of you, students from all over America, students throughout the world, this generation will choose to go to Mars. And that journey begins right now with humanity's return to the moon. Obviously, we had all hoped that Artemis 1 will already be on the way to the moon. But the NASA team has been working around the clock. Their resolve and perseverance are unrivaled. And I have full faith in this team and the mission. We will launch when we are ready, but mark my words, we are going. And when the final go is given, Artemis 1 will roar to life and soar to the moon. And every observation we make and every lesson we learn on this first Artemis journey prepares us and the way for humans to venture even further. Ladies and gentlemen, Mars is calling. Why? Because it's in our DNA to explore. Billions of years ago, the dry, toxic red planet we know as Mars might have once been like the Earth. Where did the water go? Why did the atmosphere change? Humans can discover much more than robotic explorers. We are more efficient, not to mention our intuition. And these missions of tomorrow will be sparked by the accomplishments of the Artemis generation today. It's a new era of pioneers, star sailors, thinkers, and adventurers. They are ready to learn what it will take to establish a new community on a cosmic shore. 60 years ago, President Kennedy put wind in our sails on the new sea of space exploration, and that mission is never ending. It's a mission about science and the advancement of the human spirit to expand what is possible. Let us continue the quest to unfold this universe, and let us continue to find unity in our discovery. So together, as Don Quixote reminds us, let us continue to dream the impossible dream that now becomes real. And then let us traverse the untouched terrain of the once unreachable stars. And as the President said, we ask God's blessing on this, one of the greatest adventures in the history of humankind. God bless you, God bless Artemis, and God bless our country. Thank you.
Here in Texas to have representatives who are supportive of the Artemis program, the future of space exploration, and NASA's many missions. I'd now like to introduce videos from Senator John Cornyn, Senator Ted Cruz, and Congressman Randy Weber, who wish they were able to be here in person today. We will then hear from Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson, Congressman Brian Babin, Congressman Al Green, Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia, Congresswoman Lizzie Fletcher, and the City of Houston's Mayor, Sylvester Turner. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Texas Senator John Cornyn. It's an honor to join you all today as we celebrate the 60th anniversary of President John F. Kennedy's speech that rallied Americans to the moon. When he spoke on this incredible campus, President Kennedy described our state as a state noted for strength. I'm proud to say the same rings true today, as Texas remains home to the nation's strongest and most brilliant minds in human space exploration. 60 years later, and we've only scratched the surface of what remains to be discovered. Parents used to tell their kids to reach for the moon, but that's not the only objective anymore. Now we can also tell them to reach for Mars, because that's the next port of call on our horizon. As we look ahead at the next 60 years, I have no doubt that many of you will fill the pages of history with triumphant achievements, including those being dreamt by the young minds in attendance today. May God bless you, may He bless the men and women of our nation's space program, and may He continue to bless the United States of America.
Good morning, and welcome to Rice Stadium, where we gather today to remember the historic events that took place right here on this very day 6 decades ago. On September 12, 1962, President John F. Kennedy famously gave a speech about why we as a nation choose to undertake the bold endeavor of traveling to the moon. Today I'm here to echo the sentiments of President Kennedy and a nation yearning to explore the final frontier as NASA embarks on a journey to reignite the space age, planning missions to the moon and Mars. In the words of President Kennedy, we choose to go to the moon in this decade and to do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that challenge is one that we are willing to accept, one that we are unwilling to postpone, and one which we intend to win. Just as we chose then to go to the moon, today we choose to go back to the moon. And after that, we choose to go to Mars. The prospect of achieving these goals wouldn't be a reality without the tremendous work of all of you here in Houston. Houston and Texas has been the hub of human spaceflight for the past 60 years, and will continue to be for at least 60 to come, with the help of the next generation of innovators, like the Rice Owls and the HISD students in attendance today. The contributions of hardworking Texans in the space industry and talented young Houstonians like yourselves are just a few of the many reasons I am so proud to serve the Lone Star State. May God continue to bless the United States, and may He bless all of you on the next greatest adventure on which man has ever embarked.
Friends, as a member of the House Science, Space and Technology Committee and a representative of many great NASA employees and contractors, it's an honor to join you all virtually. You know, I still remember President JFK delivering his famous speech 60 years ago. I know I'm dating myself here, but this speech was powerful about the challenge to land Americans on the moon. These words still remain true today. We choose to go to the moon, not because it's easy, he declared, but because it's hard. And 60 years later, we have chosen to go to the moon and now on to Mars. What a moment in our nation's history. We will return to the moon. It wasn't easy to get there the first time, but we are ready. NASA has worked tirelessly, and I look forward to all the work they continue to do. There is no higher ground than space, and we have the technology and the experience to get there. If we could get to the moon in the 60s, and we did, we certainly can get there now. At the end of the day, it's just this simple. NASA reminds us to dream, and to dream big. And because of them, we have come so far. Thank you to our great NASA. Thank you all. God bless Texas, and God bless America.
And I have the pleasure of chairing the Congressional Committee on Science, Space, and Technology. So this is a great day for us. And it is a real pleasure to be here to celebrate the 60th anniversary since President Kennedy spoke in this stadium. And so I want to congratulate Bryce for having the foresight to work with NASA to bring us here together today. In his speech, he challenged us as a nation to accomplish what then seemed impossible, but we have. There's no better example of representation of the American people. We chose to take giant steps. We chose to know the unknown, and we chose to lead into the future. In the years since President Kennedy's speech, we have made great strides in our endeavors in space exploration. Americans now live and work on the International Space Station. Our rovers are exploring the surface of Mars. Our telescopes are peering into the depths of the universe, and so much more. And many people comment all the time about how much it costs. I want to share with you, for every dollar we invest, we get $7 back in services and materials. So as I look at this crowd today, I see the faces of rising generations. Nothing in my experience in working with this committee and students is more fascinating than space exploration. So we must encourage our young people to keep that interest. Our work is just really beginning. And soon, thanks to the Arabis program, you will have a chance to experience Americans once again landing on the moon. Except this time, the first woman and the first person of color will be a part that steps on the moon. I hope one day some of you students that's here today will follow in their footsteps. To everyone here, and especially to our students, whether or not you pursue a career in space exploration, I hope you keep the words spoken here 60 years ago in mind. Choose to do the hard things more often than not. Your efforts will land you where you never thought would be possible. We never dreamed that we'd reach this 60 years later, but we have. And we've gained so much from it, and there's so much more to explore. Thank you for being here to give homage to the dream of President Kennedy. Congratulations, Rice.
I'm Babin. I represent the 36th District, and I have the great honor of representing Johnson Space Center. What an honor to be out here today. Thank you. In May of 1961, from the Speaker's rostrum in the House of Representatives, President Kennedy charged Congress with an ambitious mission to send astronauts to the moon. But to accomplish this extraordinary feat, NASA realized that they would need a new facility to spearhead human space exploration, and folks, Houston answered that call. 1 year later, President Kennedy stood right here in Rice University Stadium to proclaim, this city of Houston, this state of Texas, this country of the United States was not built by those who waited and rested and wished to look behind them. Houston was given a mission, the Manned Spacecraft Center. Now NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston would lead this country's extraordinary efforts in getting Americans to the moon. Kennedy declared, we choose to go to the moon in this decade and to do other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. You've heard this many times today. But because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills, because that challenge is one that we are willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one that we intend to win, and the others too. As you all know, in 1969, America accomplished the goal of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to Earth, a feat never before achieved by any other country, and we did it 5 more times. From successfully landing 12 pairs of boots on the moon and operating the historic Mission Control Center to managing the Orion spacecraft program and the International Space Station, Johnson Space Center in Houston has contributed critically essential components of the space exploration mission. None of this would have been possible without the collaboration of entrepreneurs and academic minds right here in Houston and right here at Rice University. Partnerships that have built Houston into the global epicenter of space exploration. America is today, 60 years after Kennedy's remarkable proclamation, once again on the cusp of launching the most daring exploration program that humanity has ever seen, by sending astronauts back to the moon in pursuit of going even further where no one has ever gone before. And as Kennedy said in his address to Congress in 1961, now it is time to take longer strides, time for a great new American enterprise, time for this nation to take a clearly leading role in space achievement, which in many ways may hold the key to our future right here on Earth. I'm very, very proud of the work that's being done here, and I look forward to Houston continuing to take this great nation and the world to new, longer strides in human space exploration, to the moon, to Mars, and even beyond. I would like to echo some more words that President Kennedy used to close his speech 60 years ago. He asked, I ask for God's blessing on the most hazardous, the most dangerous, and the greatest adventure on which man has ever embarked. The mission continues. Thank you, Houston. And now I'd like to introduce my good friend Al Green, who represents Texas' 9th Congressional District. Thank you very much.
For your very kind and warm introduction. To the students who are here today, are you ready to go back to the moon? Do you believe we can go to Mars? Would you like to go to Mars? Well, first you're going to have to listen to this speech. Friends, President Kennedy had something unique. The French call it je ne sais quoi, something very special. It was that something special that made him very special among the presidents of the United States of America. And when he gave his speech right here at Rice University, he explained to us and engendered within us a can-do, we can do it, and it must be done attitude that permeated the zeitgeist of his time. In his inaugural address, he indicated, let us go forth to lead the land we love, asking his blessings and help, but knowing that here on earth, God's work must truly be our own. He was a believer in getting it done by putting our hands on whatever issue was to be done and making sure that we were successful, because we are Americans. We do things, we get them done, and we will be the first to do them because we were the first to go to the moon. Nearly 2 years later, President Kennedy, this was after his inaugural address, reduced the impossible to the difficult. And the difficult he reduced to a matter of choice when he proclaimed that we choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things not because they are easy, but because they are hard. But what he said about going to the moon was something that young people across the length and breadth of this country took to heart. Young people decided that they wanted to do the difficult things. They decided to major in math and physics and engineering because they wanted to assure this country that they too believed that we could do the difficult things. These young people did these things because they were hard. And his response, President Kennedy's response to the naysayers and doubting Thomases, was captured when he extolled, by way of exemplar, this city of Houston, Texas, this state, this country of the United States was not built by those who waited and rested and wished to look behind them. Further, he indicated the exploration of space will go ahead whether we join in it or not. No nation which expects to be the leader of other nations can expect to stay behind in the race for space. President Kennedy, the great president, the president who led us into space, led this nation to believe that although the magnificent insular, this island that we know as Earth, is our genesis, our preeminent destiny is the stars. Are you ready to go to the stars? Let's do it. It is our preeminent destiny. God bless you. It is now my preeminent privilege and my superlative pleasure to introduce the Honorable Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia. Give her a big hand, please.
Congressman. Buenos dias. Hello, everybody. Well, I was reflecting on the 60 years. And first, I want to thank everybody from NASA, from the receptionists to the people who helped put people at the moon. Thank you. Thank you for your leadership, your creativity, your innovation that's gotten us to the moon. Because the challenge that was made here 60 years ago would be an empty challenge if we did not have the funding, if we did not have the collaboration, if we did not have the partnerships to get it done. So thank you to the entire NASA family for doing your best in getting this done. Then I started thinking about when I was about the age of all of these students. I grew up one of 10 children in South Texas, and I'm sort of in between the NASA, the air station in Kingsville and an air station in Corpus Christi. And I remember many times seeing the jets flying. We'd rush out of the house and just watch the planes go by and wonder what it would be like to fly. Now kids today look at the moon and look at Mars and wonder what it would like to walk on the moon and later go on to Mars. That's what this is all about, is dreaming. So while we celebrate 60 years, I look forward to the next 60 to make sure that we choose to go to the Mars and more. In getting there, I want to thank and celebrate also NASA's commitment to diversity and inclusion. You heard it. Artemis will have the first woman and the first person of color to walk on the moon. That took a long time to do. We still remember Sally Ride, our first woman. We still remember Dr. Jan Diaz, our first Latino. But we need more, because just like HISD has kids that speak 122 languages, representing all kinds of countries, we want to make sure that the moon and Mars looks like HISD in Houston. So thank you, NASA, for your commitment and for your strength in moving forward. So as I look again and think about those years growing up, all my brothers played football, all my sisters were cheerleaders. I was the nerd. I was not a cheerleader. But now I'm a NASA nerd and I cheer for NASA. So all things good. So again, thank you to Rice for hosting us. Thank you to all of NASA. It is now my pleasure to introduce one of my colleagues who serves on the committee with jurisdiction over NASA and NASA funding, Lizzie Fletcher.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Garcia. I am so glad to be with all of you today on this historic day where we stand again where President Kennedy stood 60 years ago and addressed the assembled crowd as well as the nation and the world. In that moment, he challenged Americans to continue the work to expand our understanding of the world around us and the universe beyond, by exploring space. Man, in his quest for knowledge and progress, is determined and cannot be deterred, he told the crowd, explaining that no nation which expects to be the leader of other nations can expect to stay behind in this race for space. He did so, of course, as we've heard this morning, knowing that the work to bring together a broad coalition of the greatest minds, the most innovative thinking, and the most committed explorers would be a challenge. But we know here in Houston that that is the community that we have created here. And we often remember now, as just about every single speaker has reminded us, that he said we choose to go to the moon in this decade and to do other things not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Our country and our city, Space City, accepted this challenge. Across the country and around the world, people watched and dreamed and celebrated when just a few years later, Neil Armstrong took the first step on the moon. And most of us here, I think all of us here know that the first word ever spoken from the moon was Houston. Over the last 60 years, we have worked here in this city, here in this university, and here at NASA's Johnson Space Center to meet this challenge, to continue the search for knowledge and progress, and to do so, as President Kennedy said, in pursuit of peace. And we see that reflected so beautifully in those who are assembled here today, the students, the NASA alumni, the community members, the people here in this community who have taken that challenge. President Kennedy challenged all of us as Americans to come together for the good of all mankind. And that remains our challenge. And that is the work of those who are here today, Administrator Nelson, Director Wyche, President DesRoche, and so many others whose lives and work reflect this vision and this commitment. And so today, I hope that this 60th anniversary commemoration inspires us all to commit ourselves again to this purpose, to this vision that President Kennedy laid out right here 60 years ago, to the challenge of doing the learning and the leading, so that together we can make progress for all. And with that, I am so proud to introduce a man who personifies that spirit, Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner.
Much. If you will, let me adopt everything that has already been said. Let me thank you all for being a fantastic audience. 60 years ago, President DesRoche, it was hot and steamy. Administrator White, it was not easy. People were sweating. It was hot. But the very fact that you all have been here and listened to one person after another, it signifies it has not been easy, but you have chosen to be a part of this audience. And that's what Houston is all about. We endure the heat, we endure the steam, we fan, we sweat, but in the end, we make it happen. So to my council members, Councilmember Cadman, Councilmember Robinson, to NASA, to the Johnson Space Center, to Rice University, the professors and the staff. Now let's move forward. This is a different city than 60 years ago. We are more diverse, we are even smarter, we are more prepared, and we are ready to make it happen. Now let's go back to the moon, let's go to the Mars, and I'll see you down the road. Let's enjoy it.
explorer George Mallory, who was to die on Mount Everest, was asked why did he want to climb it. He said because it is there. The space is there. And the moon and the planets are there. And new hopes for knowledge and peace are there. And therefore, as we set sail, we ask God's blessing on the most hazardous and dangerous and greatest adventure on which man has ever embarked. We set sail on this new sea because there is new knowledge to be gained and new rights to be won, and they must be won and used for the progress of all people. Space and related industries are generating new demand in investment and skilled personnel. The growth of our science and education will be enriched by new knowledge of our universe and environment. To solve these mysteries, to solve them for the good of all men.
Hello again. So for nearly 22 years, humans have lived and worked in space in a continuous unbroken streak to test new technologies, conduct scientific research, and learn what it takes to explore deep space at the moon and eventually Mars. At this very moment, this work is ongoing aboard the International Space Station. Let's now travel 250 miles straight up to hear the crew of Expedition 67 reflect on this particular moment in human history.
Oh, wow.
Greetings from the International Space Station to all of you at Rice Stadium in Houston. I'm NASA astronaut Kjell Lindgren, joined by my crewmates and fellow NASA astronauts Bob Hines and Jessica Watkins, as well as European Space Agency astronaut Samantha Cristoforetti. We are honored to join the 60th anniversary celebration of John F. Kennedy's historic moonshot speech. Today is a day to reflect on how far we have come and to reaffirm our commitment to the exploration of space for the benefit of all. The Apollo program was an awe-inspiring example of what we are capable of when we commit our talents and resources to a complex goal. We are proud to continue that bold tradition today with more than 2 decades of continuous presence aboard the International Space Station.
The work we're doing here on station builds on the Apollo program and helps to prepare us for the next chapter in human history under the Artemis program. We'll return to the moon, and from there, we'll prepare for human exploration of Mars. As a testbed for deep space exploration, the station is helping us learn how to keep astronauts healthy during long-duration space travel and demonstrating technologies for human and robotic exploration beyond low Earth orbit.
International collaboration is what made the dream of the scientific and commercial orbital laboratory a reality. The remarkable achievements of the International Space Station are made possible by the diversity of talents and experience international partners bring to the project. With Artemis, NASA and its international partners will build on the decade of collaboration to press forward to the next frontier and land the first woman and the first person of color on the surface of the moon.
Our long-term goal has always been to send humans to Mars, and the moon is an important step on that journey. With the experience we gained through Artemis, we will establish sustainable human transportation, habitation, infrastructure, operations, and science that enables deep space exploration. As we celebrate President Kennedy's historic speech, we are reminded that we count on the next generation to carry on the passion of exploration. We need you, the next generation of scientists, engineers, explorers, and other STEM professionals to join us in the excitement and make this dream possible. The Apollo generation laid the foundation of exploration. The Artemis program will now carry us to the moon, Mars, and beyond.
That's cool.
That's cool. That's cool.
At the time of President Kennedy's speech, I was a cadet at the French Air Force Academy. Like many other young people on the planet, I understood that a new era of space exploration had begun. I understood that fantastic doors were quickly opening over our heads, and I realized that our dreams would impose efforts and sacrifices, and occasionally losses. One phrase in President Kennedy's speech remained in my mind and held sometimes. If this capsuled history of our progress teaches us anything, it is that man, in his quest for knowledge and progress, is determined and cannot be deterred. Thanks to President Bush to space exploration, each of us in the job got his or her inspirational lesson.
I was not alive when President Kennedy made his speech here in this stadium, but I was a 4-year-old living in Houston when we first walked on the moon. I remember being in my backyard with my parents and my older sister, looking up at the moon that was rising over the roof of our house. I remember my parents saying something to the effect of, "We have people there." It was then that I decided I wanted to be an astronaut. The part of President Kennedy's speech that always resonated with me is that iconic line about doing things because they're hard. But then it's the next phrase. He said, because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and our skills. It was certainly true then, and is still true now. Big, difficult challenges demand the best of our energies and our skills, and our humanity.
The future of humanity through space exploration depends on the strong acceptance of ethical values that should already drive our civilization. All of us space travelers can witness that the more we climb, the more we forget about the struggles on Earth, and the more we feel the fragile soul of our beautiful home planet. The full beauty of the Earth appears with distance, and we can appreciate, thanks to the amazing discoveries of the Hubble and James Webb telescopes.
Jean-Loup, you are right about the beauty of the Earth. Looking down from the space station, one has a unique vantage point to take in the wonders of our planet. The continents, the oceans, the clouds. You can see that we are all one together on our precious and yes, our fragile Earth. Turning one's gaze to the stars, you can feel the enormity of the universe. You know that we need to continue to explore, and we need to continue it in peace and harmony together.
Let's us all preserve the beauty of our planet and get ready to pursue on the same ship the fantastic odyssey of space exploration.
And we are doing that right now on a launch pad at the Kennedy Space Center is our first Artemis rocket. Very soon, we'll be launching once more towards the moon. NASA is working with our commercial partners and international partners to establish the first long-term presence at the moon. Jointly, we will venture out into our solar system to explore and see and understand. We will do it together for the benefit of all humankind.
Space is a peaceful place where international cooperation is a success. And this is a kind of a joke. Just ask politicians why spaceships, such as their atmospheric colleagues, don't drop a flight plan before flying over so many foreign countries, sometimes not so friendly. Thanks, America, for your international cooperation initiative.
And thank you. And thanks to all our international partners who are with us on this journey. And now it is my honor to introduce our NASA Associate Administrator, Bob Cabana.
All right, we are going. Now, as JFK declared 60 years ago, we are choosing to go. And we're going together. We're going because of our unified goal and the strength that comes from our diversity. The impact of Apollo and the achievement of bold exploration goals has rippled out in ways that would be impossible to precisely measure. We not only went to the moon, but we are now looking at stars form in the earliest parts of our universe. We're flying helicopters on Mars, and we're using advancements in technology and science to understand our own home planet, Earth. NASA has also changed. We've moved forward. We're more inclusive, we're more diverse. We have a whole generation. A few thousand of those are here with us today, and they were really smart. They moved up under the shade. Anyway, they're with us today, including our next and final speaker, the talented and accomplished Houston Youth Poet Laureate, Avian Hogans. Now, anyone that is 21 years old or younger, for their entire life, people have been living and working aboard the International Space Station. For them, humanity as a spacefaring species is just a part of what we do. I had the extreme good fortune to fly 4 space shuttle missions as a NASA astronaut. And I often get asked which one was my favorite. And it's easy. It was my last one. The first assembly mission of the International Space Station. And one of my crewmates, Rice alum Dr. Jim Newman, is here in the audience today. Since November 2nd of 2000, humans have been continually living and working in space. That's significant. It impacts the way we see the world. It's why I always encourage people to get up, look up, watch it fly overhead. Now, if you missed it at 5:30 this morning, I doubt most of you were out then. Weather permitting, there's another 4-minute opportunity at 8:30 this evening as it comes over Houston. I love to watch it pass over and know that my friends are up there, advancing technologies we need for the new Artemis missions to the moon and paving our way to the future. Today's students, those here with us today, and in classrooms throughout the country and around the world, have not seen us send people to the moon yet. But they will. We are going. We are going to explore the unknown. What is life like on the south pole of the moon? What can we learn from the formation of our own planet by being on the moon? How can we live further away from Earth? Our goals are ambitious. It's not easy, but we can accomplish hard things. We dare mighty things. We are so close to launching the first Artemis mission with our mega moon rocket, the Space Launch System, and the Orion crew capsule with 4 astronauts. We're going to put those spacecraft through a rigorous mission without crew in the extreme environment of deep space to prove we're ready to fly crew on the Artemis II mission. On this first Artemis mission, Orion will fly further from Earth than any spacecraft built for humans has ever flown, and stay in space longer without docking to a space station than any ship has ever done before. And then it will return home faster and hotter than ever before. Astronauts on their first flight aboard the Orion spacecraft on Artemis II will lead the way so we can land the first woman and the first person of color on the moon on Artemis III. These early missions will enable future lunar surface missions, preparing us to send astronauts to Mars. You are living in an incredible time for human spaceflight, and I hope that you are as excited about it as I am. The scientific discoveries we'll make on these missions will enable humanity to learn more about our universe. And Artemis is just one part of what we're doing at NASA. We have a place for you, no matter what. Come join us. It doesn't matter what you're passionate about, it just matters that you're passionate. That's where it all starts. Evian, I am so looking forward to you sharing your poem with us. I can't wait to hear what poems you're going to write and compose after the first woman and first person of color step down on the surface of the moon. So let's keep charging. But don't forget, keep looking up, see the stars, and look for the space station. And wave hello to those astronauts up there as we go to the moon and further with Artemis. Thank you.
The message is loud and clear. We are going to the moon. So let us continue to encourage our present and future generation of explorers. We know that your curiosity and passion will help us to achieve the next step in space exploration, giving life and continuing the legacy of President Kennedy's work. I know of no better way to close this program than from a member of this, the Artemis generation. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Avalon Hogan, Houston's Youth Poet Laureate, and our proud Rice University freshman, who will give a special rendition of her poem, The Skyline of Mine. Avalon.
Hello, my name is Avalon Hogan. Along with being Houston's Youth Poet Laureate, I am also a freshman here at Rice University. I wrote a poem entitled Skyline of Mine. It's about Houston. As a native Houstonian, many things make me proud to live here. I am proud to attend the 6th best school in the nation. I am proud to be here today to commemorate such a monumental occasion. I feel a special connection with NASA. My grandmother worked there for many years as a government worker and even received a letter from President Obama before her retirement honoring her work at NASA. My grandmother inspires me daily to be resilient and to follow my dreams. And I see this also in the city of Houston. That's what's so great about Houston. It's full of talented, hardworking individuals who inspire one another. This inspired my poem, Skyline of Mine, which is about how the people make this city so bright. I was born and raised here in the 4th Ward area as a shy kid who loved to write but was scared to speak her mind. But as I got older, I uncovered more and more about how truly unique and beautiful Houston's art and culture is here. It has been impossible to deny my own aspirations. Houston is full of creation and innovation, from the museum district to the med center to our own neighborhoods and the stadium we're in right now. I feel so proud to grown up to be a Houston artist. I hope one day I can inspire others to shine and reach for their own stars too. Skyline of mine. My heart beats along to the foot traffic of downtown. Sidewalks guide me to my potential. Skyscrapers point me to my limitless limits. I hold my head high because I'm H-Town bound. Our culture, so influential, paints such a beautiful and diverse image. My city sparks hope. My city gives light. My city's my only home, and locally made, my city's my birthright. I've seen fireworks out my window. I've imagined my own Afro-American dream. I've seen thunder out my window. I've watched flooded gloom drain back to gleam. Houston strong, we rebuilt our legacy. Brick by brick, we regenerated our home. The days were long and dark in Hurricane Harvey, but Houston hope doesn't drown, it floats. The days were long and dark last year, when Texas snow turned to power gone. But as the freeze froze over, we huddled in closer, leaning on our community to keep us powering on. Dressed to impress, my home is the most diverse in the nation. Beyonce blessed, my home is the heart of aspiration. But the art is in the artist, and the food is in the cook. The singer is in the song, and the author is in the book. It's the people who make this place worth praising. It's the culture that makes this place so amazing. Who says you can't see stars in the city? They're coming down the highway, they're running through the park. Who says stars don't shine as bright in the city? In Houston's Space City nickname, we can see stars in the light and in the dark. Houston, we have a problem, and our Houstonians can solve it. Home to the wisest and kindest you'll ever meet. Shout out to the first-gen students at Rice University. Growing up and living in Houston has taught me so much about having pride, and I'm so proud to live under this skyline of mine. Thank you.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
I actually didn't think it was possible to get goosebumps in this temperature, but thank you, everyone. That was fantastic. That was a beautiful way to honour the ideals and visions for Houston. So before leaving the stage to the Rice Marching Owl Band, I want to thank you all for being our guests at this very special celebration, and to remind you that the future in space starts with you. Please enjoy the exhibit space and have a safe journey home. Thank you all.